What happens when you openly disrespect the sovereignty of a country and ask it to become one of the states of your country? Donald Trump did precisely that, saying Canada is the best contender to become the 51st state of America. Not only that, but he also put tariffs on Canada, thinking Justin Trudeau would submit and probably also think of joining the US as a state. However, he was wrong. Even though the Canadian Prime Minister has vowed tariffs against the US, the Canadian public has taken the revenge to a whole new level. They are boycotting and intentionally ignoring the American brands and products they have been buying for decades. Instead, they are choosing made-in-Canada products to boost their economy and make Trump feel the pain. But how is that being done, causing a headache for Trump? In this video, let's know about the whole story. Donald Trump's suggestion that Canada should become the 51st state of the United States has triggered an intense political and economic crisis. What initially seemed like an offhand remark has escalated into a serious diplomatic dispute, drawing fierce reactions from Canadian leaders, businesses, and citizens. The controversy has further fueled growing tensions between the two countries, making it one of the most significant conflicts in modern US-Canada relations. Speaking from Mar-a-Lago, Trump claimed that the US and Canada would really be something if they were a single nation, implying that economic coercion, rather than military action, could be used to achieve this goal. His comments were not simply dismissed as rhetoric, but instead were perceived as a direct challenge to Canada's sovereignty. Today, many Canadians fear that Trump's strategy involves using economic leverage to weaken Canada's independence, making it more reliant on the United States. Therefore, Canadians believe they have to take matters into their own hands because now, it's more than just economic intimidation. It's about using it as a tool to make Canada submit. Furthermore, the response from Canadian leaders was immediate and uncompromising. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau dismissed the notion outright, declaring that there was absolutely no chance that Canada would become part of the United States. Even Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, a frequent critic of Trudeau, took a firm stance against Trump's remarks, stating that Canada will never be the 51st state. The rare bipartisan unity among Canadian politicians signaled the severity of the issue, as it was no longer about partisan politics, but about defending the nation's sovereignty. The crisis has reignited nationalist sentiment among Canadians, leading to a stronger push for economic independence from the United States. Patriotism and economic self-reliance have become central themes in Canadian political discourse, with leaders across the spectrum emphasizing the need to defend Canada's sovereignty against American overreach. Interestingly, Trump's hostility toward Canada has momentarily improved Justin Trudeau's approval ratings, as many Canadians view his strong response as necessary in the face of US aggression. However, Trudeau has already announced his resignation, meaning that Canada's next leader will have to manage an increasingly hostile relationship with the United States. Polls suggest that the upcoming election may revolve around which leader is best equipped to handle tensions with Trump. The two leading contenders, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and Liberal frontrunner Mark Carney, are both positioning themselves as the candidate who can stand up to Trump's policies while protecting Canada's economic interests. While Poilievre has taken a more hardline stance on defending Canada's energy sector and promoting free trade, Carney has emphasized the importance of building alternative trade partnerships to reduce Canada's dependence on the US. A recent Ipsos poll revealed that 80% of Canadians strongly oppose any idea of Canada joining the US, reinforcing the idea that Trump's rhetoric has backfired. Moreover, nationalist sentiment has surged by 10 percentage points in just 2 months, demonstrating that Trump's actions have strengthened Canada's will to maintain its sovereignty. However, all this does not change the hard reality at hand. Therefore, Trudeau has warned that Canada must prepare for long-term economic instability with the US and strengthen its trade relationships with other global markets. Energy Minister Jonathan Wilkinson has already initiated negotiations with European and Asian countries to secure new trade deals, particularly in energy exports and critical minerals. During a Canada-US economic summit in Toronto, Trudeau reportedly warned business leaders in a private conversation that Trump's idea of annexation was not just a joke, but a calculated strategy to take control of Canada's abundant natural resources. According to sources who were present at the meeting, Trudeau expressed concern that Trump viewed the acquisition of Canada as an easy way for the U.S. to secure essential resources such as nickel, lithium, and uranium. This suspicion aligned with Trump's past statements, where he had suggested taking over Greenland and even discussed U.S. control over the Panama Canal. Adding further insult, Trump referred to Trudeau as Governor Trudeau, a clear mockery of Canada's status as an independent nation. Many Canadian officials saw this as further evidence that Trump does not view Canada as an equal partner, but rather as an economic arm of the United States. The Canadian public reacted with widespread outrage, interpreting Trump's comments as not only an economic threat, but an insult to their national identity. The diplomatic fallout quickly turned into an economic conflict, with Canada launching a counteroffensive in response to Trump's aggressive trade policies. While Trump's remarks on annexation stirred controversy, his decision to impose severe tariffs on Canadian imports transformed the situation into a full-scale economic confrontation. Trump announced a 25% tariff on all Canadian imports, with the exception of energy exports, which would face a 10% tariff. Given that Canada sends 75% of its total exports to the U.S., these tariffs presented an existential threat to major Canadian industries, particularly agriculture, automotive manufacturing, and natural resources. Experts warned that tariffs could lead to job losses in the tens of thousands and push certain sectors into crisis. The Canadian government responded with aggressive countermeasures. Prime Minister Trudeau announced a $155 billion package of retaliatory tariffs designed to strategically target U.S. exports from key Republican-controlled states. The countermeasures were not chosen at random, but were carefully prepared to put economic pressure on Trump's political base. Florida's orange juice industry, Kentucky's bourbon industry, and Ohio's auto parts sector were among the hardest hit, as these products were specifically selected to ensure that Trump's supporters in swing states felt the economic pain of his trade war. Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly denounced Trump's actions as an economic declaration of war, warning that Canada would not submit to U.S. economic pressure. Trudeau and other officials framed the issue as a battle for Canada's survival, urging both businesses and individual consumers to stand against Trump's economic aggression. This sentiment quickly spread beyond government action, with the Canadian public launching an unprecedented consumer boycott of American goods and services. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, and current affairs impacting your lives. The Buy Canadian movement gained rapid momentum, with online communities dedicated to identifying Canadian-made products reaching over 500,000 members. Canadian grocery stores quickly adapted to the new consumer sentiment by prominently labeling Made in Canada products, allowing shoppers to easily avoid U.S. imports. Across social media, consumers began proudly posting their 100% Canadian grocery hauls, demonstrating their duty to reduce reliance on American goods. For many Canadians, boycotting American products became more than just a temporary protest. It became a matter of national responsibility. Some shoppers expressed their newfound sense of duty. The boycott extended to all sectors of consumer goods. Many Canadians who had long favored American brands actively switched to local alternatives. Tim Hortons saw a surge in sales as former Starbucks customers chose the homegrown chain. Canadian whiskey sales spiked as drinkers replaced Kentucky bourbon with domestic alternatives. U.S. dairy products such as Kraft and Nestlé saw declining demand as Canadian shoppers opted for locally produced milk and cheese. Even the liquor industry was affected, as Nova Scotia's Liquor Corporation removed all U.S. alcohol from its shelves in a move that was expected to significantly impact American liquor sales in Canada. But things don't stop at boycotting American products. Canadian tourists also took a stand by canceling vacations to the U.S. in large numbers. They could not go to a country which is trying to subjugate their own country, spend money there, and enjoy. As a result, travel agencies across the country reported a sharp decline in bookings to traditional American destinations such as Florida, California, and Texas. Many Canadians who had already made travel plans began reconsidering, with some opting instead for alternative destinations such as Mexico, Europe, or domestic trips within Canada. Donald Trump now is really feeling the heat. His tariffs, intended to exert economic pressure on Canada, have produced unintended consequences that are now hitting American businesses and industries hard. While the goal was to weaken Canada's economy and force it into a submissive trade position, the opposite has happened. Canada has fought back with retaliatory tariffs, consumer boycotts, and threats to reduce energy exports, causing financial strain on key American industries. It's true that the fallout from this economic standoff is being felt on both sides of the border, but it is particularly concerning for U.S. businesses that depend on Canadian consumers. One of the most immediate and visible impacts of Canada's response has been the sharp decline in sales of American consumer products. Canadian retailers and consumers have actively participated in the boycott of U.S. goods, shifting their spending toward Canadian-made alternatives. This shift is proving to be costly for American companies, from food and beverage producers to automotive suppliers. Bourbon distilleries in Kentucky, for example, have reported significant declines in exports to Canada, as one of their largest foreign markets is now rejecting their products. The Kentucky Distillers Association has warned that the bourbon boycott alone could result in millions of dollars in lost revenue and potentially threaten 20,000 jobs in the state. Perhaps the most significant threat to the U.S. economy, however, comes from Canada's potential retaliation in the oil and energy sector. Canada is the largest foreign supplier of crude oil to the U.S., exporting millions of barrels per day to fuel American industries and households. In response to Trump's trade war, Canadian leaders have floated the idea of reducing or redirecting energy exports to alternative markets, particularly in Europe and Asia. Already, Canada has increased its oil supply to China. The completion of the $34 billion Trans Mountain expansion project marked a significant shift, allowing Canadian crude to be exported directly to Asia, bypassing the U.S. market. This expansion has already resulted in regular oil shipments passing under Vancouver's Lions Gate Bridge, en route to refineries in China and Japan. The success of this project has fueled discussions about further decoupling from U.S. dependence and positioning Canada as a stronger player in global energy markets. Furthermore, previously canceled pipelines are now being revived. Among the most significant are Energy East and Northern Gateway, two major proposals that could help redirect Canadian crude toward new international buyers and reduce reliance on U.S. infrastructure like Enbridge's Line 5 pipeline, which currently transports crude to Ontario and Quebec via American territory. Energy East was initially designed to convert an existing natural gas pipeline to transport up to 1.1 million barrels of crude oil per day from Alberta and Saskatchewan to refineries in eastern Canada. This would have provided an alternative to shipping oil through the U.S., allowing Canada to retain greater control over its energy exports while also supplying domestic markets. Northern Gateway, first proposed in the early 2010s, was planned as a 1,178-kilometer pipeline from Alberta to Kitimat, British Columbia, with the goal of opening up direct access to Asian markets. The project was ultimately rejected by Prime Minister Trudeau's government in 2016, following intense opposition from environmental groups and indigenous communities. With Trump's trade war now escalating, many industry leaders believe the time has come to reconsider these projects. As Canadian oil flows toward Asian refiners, the shift is already impacting global oil pricing. Middle Eastern and Latin American crude producers, which have traditionally dominated the heavy crude market, are now facing competition from Canadian suppliers. This could reshape global oil pricing mechanisms, with Canada emerging as a more influential player in international energy trade. Trans Mountain CEO Mark Mackey has suggested that Canada should capitalize on this momentum by further expanding export capabilities, arguing that Canadian crude is increasingly seen in Asia as a stable and reliable alternative to oil from geopolitically unstable regions. Trump's trade threats and annexation rhetoric have accelerated Canada's shift away from U.S. economic dependence. While the completion of the Trans Mountain expansion provides the first real opportunity to diversify energy exports, the challenge now is for Canada's government and oil industry to build on this success and fully integrate into global oil markets. While it remains to be seen how this trade war will ultimately play out, it is clear that Trump has fundamentally altered the trajectory of U.S.-Canada relations. Whether he intended to or not, he has ignited a movement within Canada, one that is pushing the country toward a future where it is less reliant on American trade and more focused on self-sufficiency. The next few months will be critical in determining whether this economic standoff leads to a permanent restructuring of North America's trade system or if diplomatic efforts can mend the relationship. Regardless of the outcome, Canadians have sent a strong message. They will not be intimidated, they will not be annexed, and they will fight back against economic coercion with every dollar they spend. What do you think is the best response to Trump's tariffs for Canada? Retaliatory tariffs or hitting the American economy by boycotting products? Do you believe American companies will ask Trump to end tariffs on Canada so they can do business in Canada? In the comments section right below, share your thoughts on Trump saying Canada should become the 51st state of America and saying that Canadians want it. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, changing world order, and current affairs, things you need to stay informed. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.